This episode's build is the TT Combat Regal Financiers 10mm Sci-Fi MDF kit, and our banter is going to be about Halo, the cursed IP, Mantic's upcoming Halo minigame, and my hobby progress.
The Curse of Halo, Chapter 1, Digital Heartache. In the mid to late 90s, my friends and I used a school computer lab to game in. Mostly, we took over the lab in the evenings. Lots of regulars would come by for game sessions, and also acquaintances would come on by. Some folks would just be in there in the evenings doing work, but we'd be playing, goofing off, and just people would be hanging out down in this lab with us. And for most of us, this was the first time we had ever experienced high-speed internet and LAN gaming. It really didn't matter that the school computers we were using at the time were like 6 to 8 year old Macs. What mattered was the game. The game we were playing was Marathon Infinity. If you've ever done LAN gaming before or playing in the same room with a bunch of people, it's pretty funny because, people's reactions are happening right there, and you can hear, if you've got somebody good or they're pounding the table or things like that. I think most nights, one of our buddies, Dwight, he would absolutely clean our clocks in Infinity and Marathon. He'd do a trick where he'd shrink his display draw size down, and which would make the mouse aim movements really small, and then he'd run around with double shotguns and just clean our clocks. Yeah, it was it was good times. Marathon Infinity was the third in the Marathon series, and Marathon was essentially a first-rate first-person shooter of its day, and it was developed by a very beloved game company called Bungie. And Bungie was loved because they were doing something that almost no other game company was doing at the time. They were making cutting-edge video games, but they were making them for the Mac OS, not a known platform for gaming and not known for that today. And they were innovative, right? They were kind of indie, but they were also making the best of the breed games right now, which is not very typical. Actually, I guess I take that back. Indie games today are very vibrant, but they were pushing the technology, and kind of in short, they were making games that made PC gamers jealous, and they were developing for the Mac solely. So we just loved them. Bungie would go on to make a really stunning real-time strategy game series as well, called Myth: The Fallen Lords, and that game holds up just as well today as it did then. Graphics are a little bit dated, but if you like dwarves that explode, it's the game for you. I'm just talking about it makes me actually kind of want to play it. And of course, Bungie would go on to make one of the most recognizable game IPs ever, the game being Halo. So during the development of Halo, which was like late 90s, early 2000s, Bungie was also supporting its Myth series as well, and both of these games required best of breed engineering and support to bring to life. So juggling the initial development work on Halo along with supporting Myth kind of led Bungie to a crunch, both with resources and finances mostly. They essentially ran out of dollars to continue to develop Halo and bring it to market. So they had to search for a sugar daddy and a third-party backing. And so they, of course, as people know, they were bought by Microsoft. Now, with that purchase, the Bungie team did manage to keep itself pretty independent, kind of isolated and a niche to itself. But of course, they lost some business control. For example, the name of the first game, Halo Combat Evolved. I'll let you take a guess at who put that weird Combat Evolved after the name Halo. The game released for Mac in 2003. I think that was after its initial release on PC and Xbox. You can check me on that, but it would be the last major hurrah for Bungie as a developer of games for Apple, and also really kind of its last vestiges of being fully independent. And When us Macalites, Macintosh diehards, heard that Bungie had been acquired by Microsoft and then that Halo was being turned into a launch property for Xbox, man, that was a dark, dark day. So yeah, but I still have fond memories of playing Halo, especially multiplayer. Rolling warthogs off of cliffs, the first experiences with the blue sticky grenade, all the atmosphere and action of the game. It was really good gaming. And while I do look back fondly, I also look back with a little bit of a sad pang in my gamer soul because, what could have been if Bungie had managed to remain independent? Bungie is, of course, still around today, right? They brought us Destiny, and don't get me wrong, they do have a lot of independence, and they split away from Microsoft, or they seem to split and go back and split and go back. But, the development of Halo, and along with other factors, it really changed Bungie for forever and kind of ended a gaming love affair for me. Chapter 2, Broken Resin. So in about 2004, then I start to lose touch with the Halo franchise. My gaming group has played the heck out of Halo Combat Evolved by this time. There are more modern games coming into our game rotation, replacing it. And really, for me personally, Halo is just kind of some background hum and noise in PC and Xbox exclusive releases. And it does that for the better part of a decade or more for me, until Halo kind of shows up on my radar in a different form. It's for a new game called Halo Fleet Battles in 2015, and it's not a video game, it's a miniatures game. And I'm pretty sure I probably bumped into it through miniature gaming news that I consume regularly. And Halo Fleet Battles was produced in 2015 by Spartan Games. Now, Spartan Games is a company that I have really grown to love. I love their Uncharted Seas and Firestorm Armada games. They're both very similar systems. And that's what Halo Fleet Battles was actually too. They took the Firestorm Armada rules and just reskinned it in Halo. The miniature sculpts were absolutely stunningly beautiful. At this time for Spartan Games, they're at kind of some of the height of their resin production skills. They're really beautiful stuff. But Spartan Games doesn't stop there for Halo licenses. No. In 2016, they come out with another Halo game called Halo Ground Command, which is a 15mm scale sci-fi army game, which is UNC Spartans and Warthogs and things of that nature versus good old space baddies of the Covenant and their Banshees. The sculpting here, the miniatures are just as beautiful but a smaller scale. Of course, there are always more than one reason for companies to fail, but in 2017, Spartan Games closes up shop. And they had quite a few properties. Dystopian Wars, Firestorm Armada, Firestorm something, Ground, another Ground game. Uncharted Seas was kind of at its end of its era, but they were still supporting it. And these two Halo games, Halo Fleet Battles and Halo Ground Command. So quite a stable of miniatures. But it appears that in 2017, through probably some of their leadership team had some health problems, but also what is probably looks clearly like overextension, having too much of a footprint in IP licenses and too thin in producing the games. The miniatures for Halo were very expensive, and I also don't think the marketing reach was very good for those Halo games, and they had to close up shop. It's only since Spartan Games has passed off into the great wargaming Valhalla of the Beyond that I've really grown to love them. I've purchased many ships for both Uncharted Seas and Firestorm Armada. my hobby progress here in a second will show you. I'll show you actually my entire Uncharted Seas fleet here at the end of this video. I know I have skipped some Halo properties here. Obviously, 343 Industries has been with mixed success. Also heavy backing by Microsoft. They're not fully independent, but they've had some good successes with Halo. There was a HeroClix game of Halo. There's a Risk Halo game, if that counts. There's a USA Hopley. They won't go under by touching Halo. But I think you can see the trend here is Halo twice has bitten gaming companies that have reached and pushed to make something of it. So, and personally to me, though I don't really believe in curses, but personally to me, by doing what it did to Bungie and then also robbing me of continued games from Spartan, yeah, it feels pretty bad. Even though I do like the OG Halo Combat Evolved game, and again, fond memories there. But yeah, and that is what I call the curse of Halo. And that brings us to present day, where we have just learned a few days ago that ManticGames will be bringing Halo back to the tabletop in another miniatures game. Let's talk about it. So you can probably tell I had a little bit of a script there. Right now I'm just going to kind of freewheel and deal here. If you're still with me and want to toss me a thumb or a comment, I'd appreciate that to know you're out there. So right off the bat, let's just get this out of the way. So I think Halo's cursed. Yeah, a little bit. Does that mean Mantic is doomed? No, I don't think so. I think it's unlikely Mantic struggles to succeed here. I'm actually, I should say this right at the top too, I am thrilled that Mantic is doing this. I think they're going to be extremely successful at it. I am a huge Mantic fan as well. I have huge Kings of War armies, big massive Dead Zone and Firefight Warpath universe collection. The game that I'm most excited to back and participate in upcoming is actually Epic Warpath. All of that said, I think Mantic's going to do extremely well, and there's some reasons for that. Like, Mantic is exceedingly good at bringing third-party IPs to the tabletop. Their Walking Dead game system is phenomenally good. It's coming back, by the way, in case you didn't know. And another thing Mantic is really cognizant about and does a great job with is their launch boxes. So you buy a box from Mantic, it has everything in it that you need to play, and it is a fun game that will be well supported. I have zero worries about getting into a Mantic game if I'm interested in it, that it is A, not going to be fun, and B, going to just be kind of a cash grab from a company. That is not what Mantic does. So I do not expect that from this Halo Miniatures game. I don't, though, think, at least right now, I am on the, of course, I'm going to watch the news. I always love to see what new companies are doing. I'm very excited to see what comes in this game. I don't think I am interested in buying it right now. Even though I gave myself an out on my New Year's resolution, if you watched my last video, where I said I'm not going to buy any more miniatures games. I can only add to existing games. And I gave myself a big asterisk, an exception that if there's a new Mantic game, I can get it, which allows me to get Warpath. This would allow me to still fulfill my resolution and get Halo, but I don't think Halo is going to be for me. And the reason is because that's a very personal thing with my relationship with the IP. It is only Halo Combat Evolved for about a year or so. Maybe if I watch the Paramount TV show, second season of Halo looks like it's going to be really good. Fall of Reach is going to go down. That might whet my appetite. The miniatures that they're going to put out, let's just say it. Like, they're going to be beautiful. They're going to be gorgeous. Any Halo fan I could see easily want them, right? And that often is the fate, maybe the fate of 50% of miniatures probably is just be collected, not really played with. Or I know there's a war gamer close to me that is kind of like that. So yeah, I think this is going to be a runaway success for them. What's the game? Let's here's my stab at it. So I think since Mantic is doing Epic Warpath, which will be 10mm sci-fi army level, they're not going to do a small scale army game with Halo. It will be too weird. So I think that means they'll do 28 to 32 mil, because that's always gorgeous on the tabletop, has that big high visual appeal. We're going to sell lots of boxes in game goodness with that. So that's the scale we'll be at. And if we're at that scale and we're playing Halo, I think that means we're kind of looking at squaddy skirmish sized sort of play. Maybe we're talking 5 to 10 units, probably around 10, maybe less. I think it will be UNC versus Covenant or Banished. I think they're probably, because they're with 343 Industries, they're probably going to lean towards Halo Infinite timeframe. They could throw back to Fall of Reach, because that's just like, that is the cool thing. But, and they've got the TV show. So it's going to be one of those two. I think I'll put my money, though, on Halo Infinite. And they have so much, even their announcement, all they've talked about is Spartans and bringing a multiplayer-like experience. I hope that's not what they're doing. I hope they're not just fighting Spartans in an arena, Spartan on Spartan team, to see what happens. It could be very actiony and kind of weird. It could be very beer and pretzels, I guess, like that. I would hope it's small skirmish army against small skirmish army. And the way I would do that if I was Mantic would be, I would take my firefight rules and I would liberally reshape them for Halo. And that means keep cool Mantic traditions like exploding 8s on dice alive, if that fits. You can make it fit somehow. Maybe we're like testing, sprinting, the typical dice test type stuff. But I would not just take these Halo figures and then graft them into the Warpath universe, either as a Dead Zone faction or as a firefight army. I don't think that's a good play. I don't think also that 343 Industries or Halo, Microsoft would want that done either. They're going to want to be their own separate thing. So I think they're going to be their own separate game system, probably a modified existing Mantic rule set of some sort, kind of spun off into its own game, a little bit of a different focus. Maybe they could make it a cooperative game. Could they put you on one team versus AI? That could be really cool too. Not really a dungeon crawler, but like maybe more like a kind of like a Frostgrave style Ghost Archipelago sort of thing. That could be really appealing too. But yeah, let's see. So to recap, we're going to be 28 to 32. My predictions, by the way, 28 to 32 millimeter will come in a launch box with 2 factions, a rule set, ready to go, ready to play, because Mantic is awesome like that. And I think the 2 factions will be UNC versus Covenant / Banished. I think they will also focus towards Halo Infinite. The other game that I think strongly could lend itself to is a Fall of Reach cooperative, everybody play the UNC versus Covenant. That could be the other way they go. But yeah, it's bound to be cool regardless of whether I get it or not. I'm excited to see what it is.
Yeah, so let's shift gears here. We'll take a look at this finished TT Combat building, and then I'll take you on over to look at all of my Uncharted Seas ships. Over the past 2 weeks, I cleaned them all up and primed them, and we'll start painting them here soon.
All right, it's time for some hobby progress. I have been diligently priming my Uncharted Seas. Here's some orcs in a Lego Mindstorms box that I am using as a hobby box. All the goodness on bottom. I'll put their paint scheme bottles in there too to keep me organized. Here's some Imperials that I'm getting ready to transport to Prime. I had 9 frigates for the humans. I decided I'd take 3 of those and turn them into a different class of frigate. This model was a Martyr class frigate, a fire ship, which I think has kind of like explosive barrels on the bottom and haze strapped to the deck to be extra flammable, as you do with your fire ships. So I'm custom making one here using toothpick parts, and this is just Crayola air dry clay. Just texture the heck out of it, put it in there. It looks a little bit more like piles of trash than it does hay right now, but I think maybe with a convincing paint job it'll work. My wife says she's not convinced yet, but I'll work on it. A little extra super glue there. Whoops, on one of them. I'll clean that up. And yeah, there they are. I think they look pretty good. They'll at least be visually distinct. So we're priming these bad boys now with an Army Painter Fur Brown, just vigorously over the top. And I noticed a lot of my spray primer is pretty old. It shows you how long I've been collecting this stuff, and I've been mistreating my primer a little bit. Fortunately, Army Painter stuff is mostly bulletproof, but this can happen. Out the bottom of the seam, here comes the propellant, and so this can is dead. That stuff smells really funky too. But it's from 2016 here. I think, yeah. And so, what do you want from it, huh? I actually did have cans all the way back from 2011 that were successful in priming some of these bad boys here. This can of Fur Brown helped me do these Imperials here, and you'll see later on the Dragon Lords are in the same color. So yeah, it's a good thing I'm using some of my my spray paint here. This is Army Painter again, sand yellow with a Zenithal highlight of skeleton bone across the top for just a little variation. The Bone Griffins fleet, and they've got undead whales as their frigates, which is dope. That's just a Krylon Grey of some sort. I love those ships, quote-unquote ships. Here's the dwarves in Army Painter flat black, kind of boring. There's some submarines quickly and their battleship. And now across to the frigates, right? That's how you say that. And 2 random floating guns there. Here are the Dragon Lords. My eldest son is super excited by these guys. This is a starter fleet with a carrier right there, and their frigates at the back. Oh my goodness, Shroud Mages extreme close up. Ah! And wow, just like magic, they're primed. In flat black, which looks very shiny right now. They're freshly sprayed. I also had some extra trebuchet and platforms from the Bone Griffins, so I decided I'd drill holes through those, mount the trebuchet to them, and those could be great land installations for the Bone Griffins. As you do, use your parts. Daenerys Elves with the same extreme close-up cut to prime trick. I think I really like that. Can you tell? These are in Army Painter's Skeleton Bone as well. There are those trebuchet. Yeah. A little mix of old and new fleets here from Spartan Games. And here they all are. The Imperials up top in a box. I have more Imperials here painted up as pirates. There are those Shroud Mages, looking a little flatter. And the Dragon Lords, Bone Griffins with some bonus ships there. Daenerys Elves, Wings of War on the left, just to be, completely confusing. And Cav at the bottom, which I should really paint. All right, and for next time, we'll continue our sci-fi building builds, and we'll also hopefully be painting on that orc fleet that I've got lined up. I hope you'll join me for that, and I hope you had a good time. Have a good one, y'all. Bye-bye.